The discussion about race has moved from Charlottesville to Charleston. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down one-on-one with Dr. Gibbs Knotts of the College of Charleston. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Dr. Knotts.
Good to see you.
Likewise.
Absolutely. What's going on?
Well, a lot of things, from Charlottesville to here in Charleston.
Right.
Let me take you to Charlottesville. It's been probably 72 hours since the deadly protest there. Tell me, what goes to your mind when you think of this particular situation politically?
Yeah, I mean, it's just another example of how polarized our country has become. I mean, we had these two sides that were there, and things got ugly, and unfortunately, people got hurt, someone died. And look, it's a really unfortunate situation, and again, it's a reminder of how much hatred there is out there. I mean, you think of the KKK and white supremacy being something that was big in this part of the country in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s. That's the 1920s, the 1930s, and the 1940s. But those hate groups unfortunately still exist, and they went en masse to Charlottesville. Other folks were protesting them being there. Things got really ugly, and unfortunately somebody lost their life. But it's been a really unfortunate 72 hours, and a reminder of how much hatred there is out there and how much polarization there is out there between people on the right and the left.
And let me get those sides, because Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe said this to the white supremacists, quote, "Go home, you're not wanted in this great commonwealth." And then, of course, President Donald Trump, that is, said this on Twitter after his initial comments. He says this, quote, "We must remember this truth. No matter our color, creed, and religion, our political party, we all are Americans first." When you hear that, what sticks out to you?
So Virginia, with McAuliffe saying that, is very interesting. I mean, Virginia is a state that is in many ways very southern. Parts of southern Virginia are extremely rural. They look a lot like South Carolina. But then you've got northern Virginia,
yes,
that has a lot of folks in the D.C. area that have moved there from all parts of the world, and is very urbanized and has become very democratic. And you also had a Democrat who is speaking out against the right and what they did there at that particular group. But Trump was very, very reluctant, initially at least, to name specific groups. I mean, he talked about in general terms, but he basically said there's a lot of blame to go around on all sides. And then he's since come back and denounced those alt-right groups, those hate groups, those white supremacist groups. And so, I think it was hopefully a learning opportunity for Trump. I mean, Trump had gotten support from a lot of those groups during the campaign. Okay. And so one line of thinking is that he was reluctant to denounce them by name. Perhaps Steve Bannon, his advisor, was whispering in his ear, but he received a lot of criticism from both Democrats and Republicans. And so we need our president to say, look, this country has fought for a long time so that all people are treated equally. And if you have groups out there that are basically make it their mission to preserve one group of people over the other and talk about the superiority of one group of people, that needs to be denounced.
And you talk about Steve Bannon. I believe there was a report from CBS that basically says he may be on his way out this week.
That's right. I mean, Steve Bannon is one of those guys that continues. We continue to hear that, and he continues to hang on.
Right.
So there must be something the president likes about Steve Bannon. But I think the new chief of staff, General Kelly, is probably not too impressed. He's trying to keep Trump on message, and he's trying to, again, the typical thing you do, Quintin, is when you get to a presidency or you become a governor, you try to expand on the group that got you elected. No one wants just that 51% or that 50.5% that gets you elected. You want to reach out. You're not going to get everybody. There's going to be people who don't want you in the office, but you can usually get some of those independents. Trump could have reached out and maybe gotten some of those more moderate Democrats, and he really hasn't done that. That's one of the things that I think I've been disappointed in from the Trump presidency, is that he seems to have really done a lot to maintain that base of support that he's had, but he hasn't done much to expand beyond that, and so he's got extremely low approval ratings. And I think Steve Bannon is part of that, and so whether Steve Bannon is out or becomes less influential, we'll certainly see. But I do think Trump would be well served to try to expand a little bit on and broaden his coalition, not go narrower and narrower and continue to sort of say and do controversial things that alienates those people in the middle that he needs if he is going to run for re-election, but also that if he needs to just get his legislative agenda passed.
And let me take you to the dailystormer.com. They actually issued a statement that is right after the tragedy in Charlottesville. They said this quote, "Trump comments were good. He didn't attack us. He just said the nation should come together. Nothing specific against us. He said that we need to study why people are so angry and apply that there was hate on both sides." Let me pick a part of that.
Sure.
Tell me this, why are people so angry?
Well, I mean, this was one of the most controversial elections, really in American history, and there was hatred. The Trump folks hated Clinton, and the Clinton folks hated Trump, and so they were going to be disappointed if their candidate didn't win. And I think it's a larger pattern of people have become more polarized. They watch their news and they get their own opinions confirmed. So you've got your Fox News and your conservatives watching Fox, and you've got your liberals and your left-wingers watching MSNBC. And it's just very rare that you kind of reach across the aisle, talk to people who are different. And people aren't even, it's very rare that you have somebody over for dinner anymore, much less somebody who disagrees with you politically. And so there used to be a time in American history where we had more dialogue, and people from the left and the right talked a little more, and it's become extremely polarized. I think the media plays a role, our politicians play a role, but it's certainly not good for public policy. It's not good for the United States, and it's really not good for South Carolina because we've become pretty polarized in this state as well.
Let me take you to the Confederacy. As you know, on August 2nd, this headline came from thePostandCourier.com, and it reads like this: South Carolina governor candidate Catherine Timberton's proud of Confederacy remark stirred controversy. Let me read that again. South Carolina governor candidate Catherine Timberton's proud of the Confederacy remarks stirred controversy. She actually went on Twitter and said this, quote, "I've recently come under attack from the press and others for my comments about the Confederate flag. If it's politically incorrect to say I'm a proud daughter of the Confederacy, then call me politically incorrect. My father was named after Judge William Broadley, a Confederate soldier who fought under General Robert E. Lee and lost his arm at the Battle of Seven Pines. I have a son named Hampton and a dog named Dixie, but that does not make me a racist. It makes me from South Carolina and proud of it. It's outrageous to me that some would have me disavow my family and our history." So what should she disavow?
Well, I mean, obviously, family and state pride are so important in a place like South Carolina, and we all, we look back and think about our so it's certainly, I think that plays well to be proud of your state, proud of your history. That's certainly that a lot of South Carolinians can identify with. What I'd like to see from a lot of these monuments and a lot of these discussions about the Confederacy is I personally think that we shouldn't necessarily take everything down, but I'd like to see more context, more plaques that explain both what people were fighting for and the negative impacts of what was going on, and to think a little bit more about honoring folks that haven't been honored in the past. We did a nice thing in Charleston by putting up Denmark Vesey and that statue in Hampton Park, exactly, to be able to say, look, there are multiple sides to this story. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with I think history is a good thing. I think we learn from history. I think it's okay to be proud of your forefathers and the things that they did. But I do think we want to be careful about not telling the full story and not buying into any kind of false narrative about the Confederacy, but really kind of becoming historians and learning everything we can about what motivated people to fight the Civil War, both the elite and the wealthy, but also the common folks, and also kind of what the experience was like for folks that were non-white, African Americans, Native Americans, and how this war affected them as well. I mean, I think when we truly understand that, we can move forward, but I don't think we want to have some false understanding of what the war was about or the Confederacy.
And if Catherine Templeton wants to be at Maine and Gervais as governor, she needs Charleston County.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, this is a conservative state. Whoever wins this Republican primary is the likely person who's going to be the next governor. And I think that probably, and certainly amongst whites in South Carolina, the vast majority of folks are probably not going to want to see what happened in Durham, where the Confederate monument was taken down yesterday. And so, but I do think we owe everyone a conversation to try to talk a little bit more about, you know, what these monuments mean, and to really better understand what was being fought for, and some of the racist policies and legacy that happened during the Reconstruction period, and in the aftermath of the Civil War. I mean, remember, there was the time between the ending of the Civil War until the Civil Rights Movement, where African Americans were second-class citizens and had very few rights in the South, and again, a lot of this preserving the so-called way of life and talking about the lost cause really set, I think, our state and our region back a long way.
Let me stay in Charleston County. As you know, Charleston County government is going to be it's actually suing the state infrastructure transportation bank.
Right.
Is 526 dead or alive in your mind?
What a great question. I mean, you know, this is one of those things that, you know, even back in the governor's race when we had this election to replace Joe Riley a few years back, we couldn't find a gubernatorial candidate who wasn't supportive of 526.
Mayor's race.
The mayor's race, exactly right. You couldn't find a mayor,
Okay.
exactly, who didn't mayoral candidate who didn't support 526. I mean, it is, if people have been sat in traffic in Charleston, you know how important it is to try to figure out some solutions. Maybe the solution is public transit. Maybe the solution is new roads. Maybe the solution is putting roads in different places. I'm certainly no traffic engineer.
Okay.
But I do think there is support amongst the people to continue and fix 526. I think that argument has sort of won the day. Of course, it's getting the money to do it, and the Charleston delegation over time has been so powerful in the state legislature. When you think about Speaker Bobby Harrell or Senate Leader Glenn McConnell, you know, they could really look out for the Low Country, and they've been there a long time and had the power to bring resources back. If they were still in, I'd say it's going to happen. We've got a lot of new folks representing Charleston County and surrounding counties now, and so we may not have the pull to get 526 completed. And so, you know, I don't know. I think it's likely they'll figure something out, given how many people are moving to this region and how big of a problem the traffic is. Certainly the gas tax may free up some money to on some road projects. But I tell you, it is definitely, anybody who's been out in metropolitan Charleston in the traffic knows that we need to come up with some solutions. There's no question about that.
And let me take you to Fairfield County.
Yeah.
Obviously, the future about Santee Cooper and Scanner are up for discussion. Well, is up for discussion, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, what unbelievable news that so many people who had jobs that were working on that project are now looking for work. And, you know, again, that's a part of the state that isn't necessarily riding this economic wave like Charleston or Greenville, and so we've got to be particularly mindful of that. But, you know, I don't know what's going to happen with that entity. You know, I know Governor McMaster's talked about trying to sell off the entire entity or part of the entity. And again, you know, that may make sense. I mean, I think it's, you know, it's pretty common that you get your electricity from a publicly traded company. But it would be a big change here in our state, that's for sure.
Well, Dr. Gibbs Knotts, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
I always enjoy it. Good to see you.
Likewise.
Thank you. Absolutely.